Welcome to the 𝗫𝗍𝗀𝗀𝗀 podcast, a place for in-depth analysis of stories, mainly from Webtoon. Co-hosted by sharp, witty, and dare I say, thirsty fans, we dive deep in every episode, analyzing character struggles, relationship development, and of course, theories. We also interview people working in creative industries. You can follow the 𝗫𝗍𝗀𝗀𝗀, on YouTube, podcast platforms, and social media. For bonus content, sneak peeks, and more, you can support the 𝗫𝗍𝗀𝗀𝗀 on Patreon. We're really appreciative of your likes, subscribes, follows, comments, and ratings on all platforms. Thanks for listening to the 𝗫𝗍𝗀𝗀𝗀, and let's get started. Hi, everyone, and welcome to our second interview as part of the Meet the Tinkers interview series. And we have here with us Chris Robinson, who is the exclusive partnership manager at Tapas. And Tapas, once again, is one of the biggest, webcomics platforms. It has like over 100,000 stories. They have partnerships, which we're going to hear about with like Scholastic and Young Press and Zoic. I'm sure, you can talk to us more about that since that's what you do. And Chris himself, you have a very interesting history doing other stuff even before you came to Tapas. So I'm really excited to hear from you. And I guess I'm just going to start out first briefly. What do you do in your current position at Tapas?
Well, let's see. I am the exclusive partnership manager, which is just a fancy way of saying I'm a talent scout, essentially looking for, new and interesting creators who, we think have a lot of potential, and we want to like grow into, grow with our platform.
Awesome. So I'm going to be asking more about that later. But what I like to do for me personally, I want to ask some questions about like how you got to where you are. I know for me, I've always been, people in certain creative positions, I always feel like, a lot of people think that it's remote and it's unattainable. And, oh, I can't do that. And I always want to know, like, what were the steps you took to get there? And, how did you start out like from kid Chris to, what you're doing now? So like, what did you always want to do when you were growing up as a kid? Is it anything related to this or totally different?
Yeah, good question. So when I was a child, this is like just before internet was like totally, ubiquitous and you could get it at school and stuff. So I always knew I wanted to do something with storytelling because, that was, that was just like a passion of mine. But like, I didn't know like all the people and places and like how vast the storytelling economy is, right? Like there's all these different ways outside of just being the writer or just being any front-facing creative, right? There's tons and tons of people that make every book, movie, podcast, radio show happen, right? So that's where I started. I started like wanting to be part of storytelling. My family is not we don't have a lot of creative people in my family. So they were very supportive and told me I could go out and go do those things, but like had zero idea how to make that happen or where I could fit in other than, very simple things like writer, right? Like that was the thing that I was super focused on for many years before I started learning that, there were all these other people. So like, this is like a great segue to probably like my first stepping stone, a career stepping stone. I was a Marvel Comics intern in college, and that is where I found out or figured out, I'm sure I knew on some level, but that's where it finally clicked for me that there's all these people, they're editors, right? And once I did that internship and worked very closely with editorial, being an editorial intern, that's where I figured out like, okay, this is where the magic happens. So it's more complicated than that, but at the time, that's what I picked up. So that became my goal to get to that. you know, probably like the first thing, the thing I would tell anybody who wants to get into into those creative fields, like, don't wait. Don't let people, you know, don't wait for someone else to give you permission to do it. You should just do it. And that is practice for the thing that is really, that is your ultimate goal, whatever that is. If it's, you know, working on something of your own, or working on, you know, all these, you know, corporate IPs that exist now. And basically, you know, from there, I gained experience. I became a Marvel editor. I was there for like almost 6 years, basically, and picked up a ton of hands-on, you know, out of the frying pan into the fire experience, and that's what I bring to Tapas now these days, sort of helping, you know, identify creators and concepts and stories that are, like, you know, ready for prime time and deserve like the platform, that just need a little bit of boost, whatever that is, and that's different for everybody that I take onto my programs, and they you know, and then I help them develop from there, whether it's like, you know, best practices as a freelancer, like, you know, this for a lot of the folks I work with, like, this is their first time sort of generating money for their creative work, and it's like, well, what do you do after that? And it's like, okay, I sort of help demystify or you know, help them level up from there. And then
okay, so what, I don't remember where we were before, with helping the stories.
That's right. Like, basically helping creators who are not quite professional or trying to become professional sort of demystify things that they, you know, may not have picked up or need help with, and that's, you know, like, help best way, like, you know, it's a lot of different sort of all over the place things, like how, you know, how to file your taxes as a freelancer, like how to you know, how to monetize a single piece of art like as many times as possible, so that way you're not like constantly drawing and not like making a career out of it, you know, that type of thing.
So like, let's say selling it as merch or art prints and things like that.
Yeah.
Cool. You know, it's just, so you mentioned, going way back to what you said earlier, how you originally wanted to do some writing. Is that something that you still want to do?
Yeah, I mean, it's still, I do it now. You know, I took a long break because Marvel has a very strict policy in terms of what editorial or where your creative energies go, right? You can't also like write comics for a different company while you work for Marvel. But while there, you know, I was there for quite a while. I am like front row to like the best storytellers, you know, writers and artists, and I learned so much. It was really like the best schooling, on top of like my actual schooling, which was also story related, because I went to college for screenwriting. So now post Marvel and now at Tapas in a essentially like non-creative capacity, because I'm like a manager away from the actual creation of the comics. Like I'm advising and talent scouting and helping people make their comics better, but I'm not really like working on them. So I do a little like writing on the side of my own concepts and comics and things like that I've been sitting on, you know, that type of thing.
Awesome. So is it something that we would be able to see? I don't know, what's the timeline, like a year or so, or 2 years?
I mean, hopefully sooner, inside a year, but any day now. It's gonna be tough to find, but I co-wrote a graphic novel for Vince Staples, who's a pretty popular rapper. It's called 𝗵𝗵𝗶𝘀, and that was a really cool experience.
Wow. Okay. That's awesome. Is that someone that you knew through your contacts through like work, or is it something that you found on your own?
No, I mean, I always listened to his music before, but it came through a different job that I was doing briefly. And I was editing the book for a while, and then I like hired myself basically as a co-writer.
That's awesome. I like, it's funny that it relates back to what you said when you're like, don't ask someone, you don't wait for someone to tell you to do it, you just have to do it.
Yeah.
I really believe in that philosophy. It's if you want something done, you just got to jump in and do it.
Absolutely.
So that's really cool that you went to school for screenwriting. And I know that your first position was at like Valhalla Entertainment, and it was, also like helping with the script. So can you talk a little bit about that? It's also something I'm personally interested in, because I'd love to, get into the movie industry at some point too.
Of course. Yeah. So what happened? So like, I went to school for screenwriting because, again, it's like, I didn't do enough research. Like, so if anyone listening to this is like a late high school, early college person, I would say like, do research and really like think about this stuff. But I didn't really think that closely. So my understanding of, okay, hey, you want to tell stories, you got to be the writer. Okay. So now I want to be honestly, I was predominantly interested in like writing for like Disney Channel. Like I really wanted to write like half-hour comedies for kids, basically. But like I never, even though I was going to school for it, and this is more my fault than the schools, but like I didn't quite understand like how to put the pieces together in those places, or to get to those places. And at the same time, I had comics, which I was, interested in. I was a reader, but it was easier to see the connection between where people, where people start their writing careers and finally get hired at the highest levels, Marvel, DC, Dark Horse, all those places. It was easier for me to sort of like track how people got to where they were going. And for TV, TV, I think is it's obviously a much bigger industry. It's less transparent in that respect. Pretty much, any comic book writer, anybody that works in comics is like happy to talk about how they got where they're going, right? But at the time, TV, all that stuff, less so. Now, with like podcasts and like Twitter and like, you know what I mean? Like I imagine it's much easier to track how to get into those spaces. But at that time I couldn't figure it out. So that's where I sort of like, my path started diverting away from film, TV stuff. And then also the fact that like, I didn't have anybody like, I didn't have any connections. Like I was like a true outsider. Like I was, no one in my family had done it. No, like I didn't know any of that one that had done it. The internship at Valhalla, where I was writing coverage. I was doing book reports basically on screenplays that they would get, properties that they would get, and they have a basement full of kids in college, like doing these quick book reports about it, so the execs don't have to read them. But like I didn't see like, what do you do next after that type of stuff. Now it's I would be able to tell someone what to do, but like it was comics just seemed like easier to grasp.
I find that really interesting, because I know for me in my life, I've definitely, I'm landed in a different place than where I thought I would be in a lot of ways. And I always wonder to myself, like my first original dream in life was to write novels, and then then followed like entertainment industry, and then psychology, which ended up doing something else. And I just finished an MBA and a project management degree, and like I just do things that I didn't expect that I would be doing. And I wonder to myself sometimes, I'm like, that original dream that I had of writing novels, like it's still burning strong inside of me. But I always wonder, maybe I will be satisfied doing something else. Like I know I want to be creative, and I know I want to do storytelling, like you said, but maybe I'll be better suited, not doing the writing. Maybe I'll do something else. So I always wonder, like, am I betraying my original dreams by thinking, okay, I'll settle for something else, or like, do I have to keep that strong? So do you ever feel like, your original goal of wanting to write television for kids, like, do you even want that at all anymore? Or is that totally like, oh no, I'm fine, I'm satisfied with what I'm doing now?
Sure. Yeah, great question. So like, I happen to think, would I do like other types of writing, of course, absolutely, right? But like, I think the reason we sort of like find ourselves following these other paths, right, is not because we lose passion for one thing. It's because your own skill set, who you are, sort of like diverts you over time. Whether it's you know, because hey, like I know I was able to get, you know, X interview with this person, so now I'm sort of on this production path, or you know, front office path, rather than, you know, a different, you know, if you had gotten a different interview with you know, a talent, like a talent agency or something, that probably is more going to put you on a talent path rather than the other thing. But it's also like, you know, your own skill set sort of that define or pushes you in these directions, right? So like writing a novel is super hard. Like all types of writing is hard, but like I don't, like prose writing is like, you know, the amount of dedication it takes is extensive, right? And I feel like you know, maybe, and you maybe feel the same way, like I had other skill sets, like, you know, talking to people and like getting you know, being able to look at a calendar and be like, that's going to take way longer than we have. Like, you know, I mean, these maybe sort of like, you know, quasi analytical skills that like maybe people who have that skill of, I'm going to sit in this chair for 8 hours today and do 1,000 words. They don't have the skills that we have, you know? So.
Yeah, I relate so much to what you said, because I recently was very proud of myself because I wrote a short story, and I was like, wow, awesome. You know, I wrote a short story and I haven't written in so long, and I'm always, you know, like I'm always saying I'm going to write a novel and I haven't written anything. I'm like, okay, great, I wrote a short story, and then I sent it to my best friends, and I'm like, you know, give me real feedback. So they gave me like one positive thing and like 10 negative things. They like, you know, they gave me really good constructive criticism of what was wrong with my story, and I was like, I realized that at that moment that like I had put all my effort into developing a different skill set. Just like you said, I went to school for psychology, which I guess was related. And then I did, you know, 3.5 years doing an MBA, and I developed like an executive skill set. And a lot of my jobs could further that skill set. And like, if I want to be a good writer, I have to study it just like I studied, you know, another profession. And I'm like, do I have the time in my life? You know, when am I going to be able to do this? If I want to be a writer, like, I don't know. I mean, I hope at some point I'll have enough money to, like, I don't know, take a sabbatical or something and devote myself to it. But I was like, it doesn't happen without, you know, a lot of study and practice.
Yeah, practice and like just getting down that that muscle memory of like making it happen. You know what I mean? Honestly, like being able to do it, I think is maybe more important than maybe doing it well in a certain sense. Because, you know, how many people, you know, how we all have had the experience of being like, how did this get made? You know what I mean? So it's like being able to like dedicate and have a done thing is definitely better than having a perfect thing, you know?
100%. I always there's a certain TV series, I won't say what, that I've been watching, which is pretty obvious what it is because it's on my podcast. And then a lot of people have been like ripping it apart and like, oh, this is bad, and I'm like, you know what, they actually did it. Like I can sit here and watch it and deconstruct it and tell you what's wrong with it, but I know I could not write it. I couldn't get it off the ground, you know, like some appreciation and respect.
Yeah, everything is sort of like a little miracle, right? Like every like story thing is like special in that way.
Yeah. So I guess leads me to another question. What do you look for in stories that you work on? And is it something that you have a choice? Like you look through the catalog, you're like, okay, I like this story. And what is it that draws you to stories that you want to work on?
Yeah, sure. It's funny that we're doing this now because I was actually just putting together a presentation, like an internal presentation at Tapas to sort of like basically like teach everyone else what I do, because I have a new, like this role didn't exist before. Like it's not for me. They were looking for someone to do this, but like it's not it's different, right? So there's three things that there's really like six things, but let's start with the three. And this is something I learned at Marvel, and you just apply it to everything rather than just those set of characters, right? But there's three things. There's I don't want to mess it up for you. Let's see, concept, creator, and characters, right? And if you have those three things in some Voltron-esque capacity, you can have a successful comic series, right? Now, blowing it up for not just, you know, Marvel Comics editorial use, what does that mean? Okay, so there's creators. Like if there are creators who are, and you know, all types of things, like super talented or super well known, or you know, the creator has to be special in some capacity. We'll come back to this one because this, you know, this is its own thing. And then concept is the literal, like, you know, the elevator pitch really good. You know what I mean? Is it the thing that makes you go, I want to know the answer to that, right? Concept, creator, and characters. So for Marvel, it's characters, but it's like, you know, there are certain characters that everybody knows and loves and will buy a comic book about if the other two are failing. You know what I mean? So Spider-Man can make you, on that alone, buy a comic book, right? Now, if you like wanted to do a comic about Power Pack, right, you better have the other two be really strong. You know what I mean? So in the like outside of Marvel world, like what would that mean? Like, is the IP, or do you have a fan base? Do you have a well-known IP, like, you know, Sherlock Holmes? You know what I mean? Like if somebody wanted to tell their own Sherlock Holmes spin, it's like, okay, that's better than just some detective you made up, right? Not, you know, you get it. So yeah, so character, concept, creators, and then looping back to creators, that this is like the old idiom that everyone knows, but like fast done, or good, fast, pleasant. I don't think those are specifically it, but like, you know, if you look at a creator, like, can they finish quickly? Like, do they finish? Can you do it on time? Can you do it really well? Like, is it really great? And like, if they're a jerk, it's like, now I'm less interested, right? But that's the like 6 elements that sort of go into me deciding, like, is this going to benefit? Can this be a beneficial relationship with us and with Tapas and this creator and series?
Yeah, it's so interesting to hear you say that, because I'm hearing parallels of my like education. So at school, I did one of my concentrations was entrepreneurship, and we learned about, you know, talking to investors and what makes investors want to invest in a company. So we learned that there's, you know, there's kind of like 3 things I look for. There's, you know, the product itself at the surface, there's the product market fit, and then there's the team. Because sometimes the idea is great and the market is ready for such an idea, but if the team cannot execute it, if they're not reliable, if they're not consistent, if they're, you know, they have personality issues, you can't trust them to bring that product to market. And I know personally, like, I read stories that the concept is great, the characters are great, the art is wonderful, but the creators are not reliable. Like they post every couple of months, or like they post for a few months and then they go on hiatus for a year, you know? So I understand very well, like, it's not just the story that you need to have.
Yeah, it's exciting, and you know, if you can be strong in one area and less strong in another. So it's like, you know, finding out, it's like important for everyone to sort of like unlock in themselves, like what would be what works and what's going to take them wherever they want to go, you know?
Yeah. So now I guess in terms of, I'm curious to hear a little bit more of the specifics of what you do, kind of like that value add.
Sure.
You did go into it a little bit before, but I'd love to hear more. Like, I know that there's all sorts of partnerships being made in terms of taking a story and making it into, you know, like TV shows. So I know A Business Proposal, which is a Tapas IP, is being made into like The Office Blind Date. Well, I think that's the Korean title, and that's something I want to watch, because I read that story, and I hope it'll be available in America. I don't know if it will.
I think it'll be on Netflix, maybe. I can't remember.
So, perfect. It's funny. My husband watches a ton of Korean shows, and like I read the webcomics, and then like that's how I get into Korean shows. Like, he just watches the shows, and like I come at it I'm only interested because I already know the comic. You know, it's just funny.
Yeah. Did you watch Dr. Brain?
Dr. what?
Dr. Brain.
Nope. Sorry.
Yeah, Dr. Brain was pretty good. We have that on Tapas as the comic, and Apple has the show version.
Oh, yeah, I don't have Apple, but yeah. So yeah, so what other, like, I don't know if there's different people at Tapas who are in charge of different things, but what kind of opportunities or like upstreaming do you try to do with your stories?
Totally. Let's see. So I'll just take you through like me seeing a comic to like everything that happens after it. So you know, I'm on the community team, but you know, pretty much everyone that works at Tapas is constantly reading comics. You know, we recommend stuff to each other. We're paying attention to our Discord, which is another great place that people sort of share, you know, comics that they're working on or that they just like, you know what I mean, just as readers. And you know, through some means, whether it's just me scrolling through the app or someone I work with being like, hey, you need to pay attention to this, or you know, someone online, you know, tweeting about it or social media sharing it, I will become aware of a comic, and pretty much I can very quickly tell like if it passes that trifecta thing I was just talking about. You know, because I will look at the comic, I'll look through a few episodes, not yet like evaluating the story really, but just sort of like looking at the art style. Is this a palatable art style that like mainstream or a lot of people will like? What, you know, things can be sort of esoteric and still be well liked, right? And I'll look at the creator, like, does this person have a long list of finished projects that I can be like, okay, they have a track record of finishing and you know, knowing what to do and making a habit out of telling stories. Great. Okay. And then you know, everyone is either, you know, smart about, hopefully people are smart about, you know, the way they present their story. So like, does the description just tell me the premise right away? Like, hopefully it does. Sometimes they don't, but you know, maybe someone else who the way it was recommended to me is like, this one's crazy. It's about, you know, a horse that you know, runs races or something. You know what I mean? Whatever it is, that doesn't sound very interesting at all. But you get it. And you know, I will, because that's a thing that like maybe, you know, somebody might have a really be very good at telling a story, but not good at selling a story. You know what I mean? And that's something that we can help with. So once I start reading it and living with it for a second and seeing all the potential that could or couldn't be there, then I'm like, okay, let me chase this one down. Let me go look into. So then I start getting in contact with people. Sometimes people are very difficult to find. You know, hopefully people listening, everyone, like, just get a website. You know what I mean? It's not, don't hide yourself. If you're trying to put yourself out there for work or your own stuff out there, like, get a Wix site. It's free. Like, make it easy to find you. Put your email address on there. I'll dig around. Luckily on Tapas, like, I can look into the back end of the site and just pull people's email addresses that they created their account with, and I'll reach out. And then that's when I do that sort of like, you know, Shark Tank interview thing, and I sort of like probe them and say like, okay, how long have you been doing this? Like, is this this story like something that you've been dying to tell for years? Like, what are your plans for it? You know, and like, I'm asking questions that I want to know the answer to, but really I want to like get a sense of a person. You know, if they immediately start you know, reacting poorly in the situation, it's like, you know, self-selecting at that point, right? And sometimes people are like, hey, I do this comic for fun and I have no intention of turning it into a job, and it's like, that's cool too, absolutely. So once it gets through all these things, I make, you know, the offer to them, and we go through the fun paperwork of it all. They, you know, do their due diligence on their own end, and then we once that has been put to bed, then I bring them into sort of the Tapas ecosystem. And you know, there's We do a lot of like design help, you know what I mean? So like, that's when I start saying, okay, here are like sort of cosmetic improvements that you should know, right? Like, this character is by far the most exciting, interesting character. Put them on the cover. You know what I mean? Real simple stuff like that. Designing logos, sort of refining the story. Where sometimes I read stuff and I'm like, hey, your story starts in episode 5. Let's delete 1 through 4. And they go, okay. And then maybe we'll use it down the line, but like it starts to get interesting in 5. Let's make that number 1. That type of stuff. And then we start looking at like, once it's sort of like relaunched on the site, as we start looking at like what other goals do we have, do us and the creator have for it, whether it's getting it into print. Some people are desperate to really have their comic printed. Some people, they don't really care about that part of it at all. And then adaptations, merch, whatever. And then we have different departments who sort of like head up those things that maintain relationships with all the different companies that can help in that regard, whether it's Big 5 traditional publishers or Kickstarter outreach companies that can sort of like do smaller projects. But yeah, we sort of turn the machine on, and whatever the creator's goal for their series is, that's where we start chasing down.
That's pretty cool. And yeah, I'm not surprised to hear that there are different divisions in charge of different opportunities. Like, how many people would you say, I guess, are each department or altogether, for
probably like 4, I would say. I would say there's the creative department, who's run by Scott Newman, who's an amazing art director who I know from way back when I was in my younger days. He used to work at Boom Studios for a long time, or Boom Entertainment, I guess is the name now. So he helps people sort of like optimize those covers and logos and all those things, like make sure we're putting our best foot forward on that front. And then there's Alex Carr, who comes to us from DC Comics and Amazon. He's our conduit to the traditional publishing world. Really smart guy. And then there's Kevin Nicholas, who is our conduit to film, TV adaptation, all that stuff. He has an amazing pedigree as well, and he got us linked up with CAA, which is like very big, huge deal. It's where that puts us, Tapas, and creators that we work with that much closer to that ancillary development world that everyone's a lot of people are interested in, at least. And then there's Kim. Can't forget Kim, who is promotions, and she helps identify, or she helps on a lot of fronts, but in terms of helping creators become comfortable talking about their comics, not everyone is ready for that, but they want to be, and it is a good thing. So she'll help either train them in that respect so they can be, and then once they are ready, she connects them to all the great places that like are interviewing and writing about comics and storytellers and all that.
That's awesome. It sounds like you're really very supportive and there to hold their hand and help them out.
Absolutely, yeah. It's definitely a team effort. It becomes it only works if we're team players. Like we can't really do this if somebody wants to be like a lone wolf. Like if that's the whole point, right? It's we're giving our platform and resources to a creator who needs a little bit of platform and resources to just make that jump, that next level, next level move. So
it's interesting because as a younger person, I always thought that I have to do everything on my own, and that that's the only way to, I guess, I don't know, I was probably a little bit more of a perfectionist back then and a little bit more of a control freak, but I don't know, I thought that to be successful, you had to like just be able to do it all. And now I realize, yeah, like something really good doesn't happen without a lot of collaborative effort.
Absolutely. Everybody needs a team. And, you know, even if it's not a formal thing, like I totally encourage up and coming creators to like look to your left and right and make these team collaborations with your peers, because A, it'll make you stronger in the long run, and B, you know, you never know who can help you out later. And, you know, and if it's you got to help out your team. You know what I mean?
Right. I guess that's a good segue into another question is, what advice do you have for people who want to be in the creative field, whether it's their own stories, whether it's we're helping other people with their stories? What's your advice?
Yeah, I love giving advice. We'll give advice at the drop of a hat. So two things, and I've already mentioned them. So, you know, I spoiled it already, but basically don't wait, just start, just do it. It doesn't matter if you think you're doing it poorly, just do it and finish it. And less important, but still important, put it places where people can see it. You know what I mean? Even if you just finish it and have it and like don't show anyone, like that's fine. That's still something. But you know, you want to put it out there, because the real reason you want to put it out there is to like see how people react and then learn from that, right? And you have to be like humble enough to be like, either I didn't do it, I didn't get it across. Like you have to learn from what people are giving you. If you put out something and everyone is like, I don't get it, there's something there, right? And then so that's the first one. The second one also I already mentioned, but like make friends, you know, collaborate. It's way easier to get, you know, here's a great example. When I was in that period of like trying to get into comic book editorial, one of the first things I did was make an anthology, right? As like a proof of concept or a practice of like, I can do this, right? And I had tons of people pay attention to it because I had tons of people involved, you know? So if there's some sort of project that you can do with a group of people, that's way better for you in the long run than just doing your own collection of short stories, right? That people may or may not pay attention to. And then I should probably give like one more piece of advice that I haven't already spoiled, right? Let's see. Yeah, just do it. Collaborate with people. And then, you know, how about this? For the folks who are trying to like get behind the scenes, right? I would say the thing you can do is reach out to people you admire, right? So now they may not get back to you because like they're working people, they're busy, but like especially if it's without an ask attached, you know what I mean? It's just like, hey, I heard you on Story Tinker, really inspiring conversation. Thanks so much. It meant a lot to me. That's it. You know what I mean? And they may not go back to you. They, you know, nothing may come of it, whatever, but like make connections with people and, you know, sort of like kindness is like really key in terms of like building relationships with people. So be kind, build relationships, and then sort of like, you know, the day you have something to share, you know what I mean? Again, there's nothing to ask for just yet, but it's just like, hey, I worked on this anthology with like 8 of my friends. I wrote story 3. I've been inspired by the things that you put together that you work on. Check it out if you would like to, you know what I mean? That sort of thing. Yeah, that's what I would say. There you go.
No, I really like that, because the home that I was raised in, the number one important thing was like, I would say do the right thing, but like being kind. was extremely important. And I've seen in my own life that, you know, in school, we were always told, the MBA school was like, network, you know, like networking is the most important thing you can do. And, you know, to me, it's like, there's fake networking and then there's real networking. Fake networking is like very utilitarian. Like, I am talking to you because I want something out of you. And then I find that but like, it's much more effective and real if you actually have a relationship with someone. I mean, like, who are you gonna go to bat for? Your friend or someone who's just messaging you on LinkedIn, you know? Like,
absolutely.
And, I don't know, to me, it just reinforces the lesson that like everything in life has to be meaningful and real. Like, you can't just, you know, if it's done with good intentions, it'll be a good thing. If it's done with like selfish intentions, it won't help you. I don't know. That's just me making everything
100%. No, you're right on it. And, you know, don't, you know, anyone who hears this and is, you know, like, don't feel bad. Like, I did it in the past where I sort of like made sort of, you know, like false connections that way, because I just didn't know. Like, it was truly a like hard thing to sort of like get in my head, or a hump to get over in terms of like, what do you say? You know what I mean? Like, what do you do? Like, how, if you do want to make a connection, you do want to network, say what? You know what I mean? Like, this person doesn't want to hear from me. Like, it's really, it is a tough, I remember being there and not knowing what networking means, but really it just means be kind and be genuine and don't be afraid. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Yeah, I know for me, like, one thing that I do when because I definitely reach out to people a lot. In regards to the podcast, I do it a lot. So what I always think about when I'm writing a message is like, what do I really, really love about this person's work? Because when I'm reading something or I'm watching something and I genuinely love it, like, I'm not going to reach out to someone unless I really love what they're doing. So then I think to myself, like, what did I love about it? Like, why am I so excited about this content? Like, and then I share it, you know, to try to just keep that in mind. Like, this is something I'm really appreciative of. And I want them to know, you know, just like I would appreciate it if people saw something they loved in my work and be like, hey, I love this guy, I love that. You know, so I'm like, try to remember, you know, that excitement, to give them that like, wow, someone loves what I'm doing, you know?
Absolutely.
So just the last couple of questions. The fact that you're engaged in, you know, these stories all day long and doing it as a job, does it ever take away from the enjoyment of the story? Has it ever become like a drag? No.
I don't think so. Yeah. It's no, I think when I sort of like burn out in the moment, or, you know, you just go do something else. Like I got really into audiobooks in like the last like 6 months or so. And it's not, you know, I wasn't listening to those before. I took a break, you know, after I left Marvel, I took a break from like monthly Marvel comics for like a year, and I'm only just now sort of like checking out the you know, the comics that I missed, and yeah, it's totally fine to take breaks and like explore different things. Yeah, if you if you experience a total burnout on storytelling as like from a base level, like, ooh, I don't know what you would do in that sense. I mean, everything is storytelling, so like, you know, if
said by a storyteller, but yeah,
yeah, I guess like, I don't know, you could like start reading nonfiction, you know what I mean, maybe, or listening to nonfiction if you felt burnout, but like, oh, like me, like this really happened, like, so maybe that's enough of a difference. Yeah.
So which stories, and this could be, you know, at Tapas or anywhere, or movies or TV shows or books, what are you currently reading and what are you enjoying?
I can give you something I just finished. How's that? Okay. I just finished the Will Smith autobiography. And you know, that's like, you know, I'm of the age where I like really admire Will Smith for everything, you know, from a upbringing, a racial, you know, point of view, and you know, from storytelling, from his music, like, just like, there are very few people who I would say is like totally ingrained into like who I am probably as him. And it was, I listened to the audiobook and he reads it to you. And so that was like it's like him having, you know, telling me a story about his own life to me. And he does all these like voices too for like, you know, people that are very, that factor in. Very highly entertaining. I highly recommend it. So yeah, so that's my big one, my big one at the moment. Outside of that, here's like a non-story, but also there's a story to it. Like, there's this show called Wipeout, which is just like people getting knocked off of, yeah, knocked into like water, and bashed with like, you know, pies and stuff. Like it's very fun. It's hosted by John Cena and Nicole Byer. Very funny, but that's also like a good like palate cleanser type entertainment thing that like you don't really have to dissect too much or think about too hard. Yeah, so there you go. Those two.
That's cool. I relate to that because I'm typically like highbrow and a big snob. Like I try to read, you know, certain amount of nonfiction or listen to like podcasts, and I read classics, and you know, I'm a big snob when it comes to reading generally. But when I watch stuff, I watch I love that kind of slapstick comedy where people like, you know, the Three Stooges where like they get bashed over the head with the stuff. I love it. Yeah. I loved it since I was a kid, and I love it now. And it might be silly and completely nonsense to laugh when people like slip on ice and stuff, but I love it.
Yeah, it's good for you. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, and I want to end with just a couple of like the rapid fire questions, just totally. Sure. Silly, fun questions. I guess kind of answered one of them about what book you're reading now, but yeah, favorite food.
Man, I mean, gotta be pizza, right? But that's, you know, 1,000 words for snow, right? All pizza is different. How about this? There's a for anyone in the Los Angeles area, there's a pizza place inside of a bakery called the Lodge Bread Company, I believe is the name. But on nights and weekends, they make pizzas that are fantastic. And I'm a New Yorker, so you know I'm very picky when it comes to that type of thing. So yeah, everyone go hit up Lodge Bread Company. The name of the pizza, I guess it's like two businesses in one, is different than that. But if you just call the same number on Google, for Lodge Bread Company, you'll get connected with the pizza place at night for sure.
Nice. You know, it's fun. I realized I saw somewhere on the internet you were from Queens, and I am from Brooklyn. So. Oh,
there you go.
And also
warring boroughs right here. Absolutely.
Okay, so first concert that you went to.
Sure. I mean, my first concert was the Ninja Turtles.
All right.
Okay. What's that?
I said Elmo.
I mean, pretty close. The Ninja Turtles rocking the guitar tour of the sewer. I don't forget what the name was. I was like a child. But my first like concert that I like went to as a teenager, was the Roots, right? Mm-hmm. Who are now like the Jimmy Fallon house band. But yeah, I saw the Roots in concert like many times when I was in high school.
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah. Okay, so speaking of which, most recent song that you listened to?
Oh, I listened to Magic, which is a new single by Vince Staples, because now I'm forever going to be paying attention to what Vince Staples is doing. Not that I wasn't before, but now it's like, now I have like extra reason to always be sort of up on it. But yeah, he just put out a new single in the last week or so that I listened to last night for the first time.
Cool. Okay, check it out. And last question, what was your most recent Google search?
I'm glad you asked this ahead of time, because I definitely would not have remembered on my own. But the last thing I Googled was 𝗦𝘂𝗽𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀, as in David 𝗦𝘂𝗽𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀, as in I was trying to recommend to someone 𝗤𝗵𝗿𝗀𝗀𝗃, his book, and I couldn't remember the title, so I had to. That's what happened there.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, it was such a delight talking to you. I really, really, really enjoyed it, and you said a lot of really smart things. Yeah, I mean, to me, I wanted to interview people because, you know, growing up, I never thought I would be able to get into creative professions. Like you said, I didn't come from a family either that did creative stuff. My mom had us be very creative, but professionally, no, like it was not, I didn't think it would be an option. So I know I personally take inspiration from hearing people, you know, in these fields and doing what they're doing. And I really, really, really loved talking to you. So thank you so much.
Hey, thanks for having me, Mindy. This was awesome. And I hope everyone that hears it is, you know, entertained at least, and at best, like, you know, inspired to like take that next step in whatever the thing is that they're trying to do.
Yes, amen. And report back to us, please do.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Yeah, if you have a success story, definitely that would make for a good episode, I bet. Yeah.
Yeah, and even, you know, a success story is taking that first step, you know, just putting, like you said, putting that out there, doing something. I think the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, right?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Really, really appreciate it.
Yeah. Hey, thank you.
All right. See you. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you so much to my current patrons: Susie, Lady Libris, Lily, Jenny, Haley, Molly, Veronica, Emily, Emily, Jo, Rochelle, Saucy Tuggles, Meg, Ann, Rose, Priya, Alexa, Misty, Laura, Joanne, Patty, Emilta, Esther, and watching people, Taurus, Poppy, Marie, Jen, Emily, Jean, Jen, Erin, D, Kay, Lily, Beckett, Duranda, Christine, Sadie, Kelly, Daniel, Louisa, Gastaldo, and Kaylee. Your support is truly appreciated.